For today's restorative class, we're going to be focusing primarily on the shoulders, so you are going to need a towel for some of the work. For the first portion of today's class, you're going to be using the wall. So coming to a fairly free wall, we're going to start with scapula glides. I'm going to have my hands nice and about shoulder distance or a little bit wider than shoulder distance apart. And then focusing on my little shoulder blades, I can think of them like elevator doors opening and closing. So I'm going to gently slide them toward the spine like elevator doors closing, and then actively pushing the wall away. My elevator doors are opening. It's not a big movement. Now, where a lot of people can get a little caught up with this exercise is they start to bend their elbows like it's a push-up. I'm not doing a push-up here. I'm really focusing on just mobilizing and working the shoulder blade. If you're having a hard time staying out of the bent elbow, you can come to a bent elbow on the wall and you can work from here as well, letting the shoulder blades glide together and then pushing the wall away. So you've got a couple of options there. And then because the elbows are bent, you can't really bend them to help you through the exercise. So we're just going to do a few more like this, sliding them together and apart. One more time, elevator doors closing, elevator doors opening. Now I'm going to move into a sliding movement. So I do have to be on my elbows for this, or on my forearms for it. And I'm going to start with a single arm version because it's a little bit easier. And I've got a little bit of a kind of V shape happening here. Keeping my pinky connected to the wall and my forearm connected to the wall, I'm going to start to slide my arm up on a diagonal. Now I am actively pressing into the wall, which is going to wake up all of the tissue under my shoulder blade. And then as I come down, trying to lead from my elbow so I don't get up into my shoulder like this. And I'm just going to bring my elbow back down on the diagonal toward my waist. Doing that again. So just gently pressing into the wall to wake up the tissue under the armpit, and then staying connected into that as I go up on a little diagonal. Now you can see this is about as far as I'm going. You don't have to go all the way up to here. You want to keep the elbow connected and then coming back down. And again, just going up on that diagonal, keeping the abdominals pulled in, and back down. 2. Now, if you don't like the feel of the wall against your skin, you can put a towel between you and the wall. So you'll still glide, but you won't necessarily feel the wall against your skin if you're sensitive to touch. And then down. I'm going to do the other side. So finding my little kind of VW here, my V shape or W shape, pulling the abdominals in, and then keeping the pinky connected as I come up on a little diagonal, keeping the elbow connected, then leading with the elbow as I come back down. Just nice and easy. I'm going to do about 4 of these on this side. Trying to keep my ribs pretty quiet so I'm not pushing my ribs in this movement. Doing one more time, pressing the pinky and down. And then I'm going to go to both arms. So I'm going to face the wall again. I have my forearms on the wall, pinkies connected, and I'm going to open up into a little V. And you can see I'm not going very far here. And then leading with my elbows to come back in. Exhaling as I go up. Inhaling as I come back down. I want to be very careful that I don't start to sink into my back as I do this, but instead staying really strong through my core. Inhaling back. 2 more. And 1 more time. And down. And then pushing yourself away.
The last thing that we're going to do here is a little bit of rotator cuff work. So the shoulder joint is one of these joints that is a very fine mix of mobility and stability. So we just did a lot of stability work there where we were working through movement, but the shoulder blade was being very supportive and stable during that. We're going to look at that again in a 4-point kneel. Now we're looking for a little bit of mobility through the shoulder joint. So we're going to do a little bit of rotator cuff work in order to help us with that. So I'm just allowing my hands to rest fairly free by my side, and then just opening and closing the palms and very slowly bringing the arms up. So they're in my peripheral vision. I'm not way back here. So just coming up, and I'm just going to come onto like a nice little V, and then coming back down. So I was working with a client the other day who felt that this particular rotator cuff exercise was actually really challenging for her bicep, and it didn't feel very good. So you can absolutely do this if it feels good for you for rotator cuff, but when I moved her to this exercise, which is still engaging the rotator cuff, she found it way more accessible. And she was able to then start to really strengthen through that rotator cuff in a much more effective way. So oftentimes it's just about kind of finding the movement that feels good for your body at the time, but is still targeting the area that you want to strengthen. So we're going to come up one more time and down one more time. I'm just breathing nice and easily here. I'm not really thinking too much about the breath. And I'm not really jarring my shoulders back and forward as I do this. I'm really just allowing for the humeral bone to move fairly easily on the shoulder joint. The humeral head is actually larger than the shoulder joint is. So it's almost like a golf ball on a golf tee, just gently kind of trying to find its balance. I know I said that that was our last one, but we're throwing an extra one in. Why not? All right, and then coming to rest at the end. So I hope that just even that has begun to open up the shoulders a little bit more for you. Maybe you feel a little less rounded and you feel like the shoulder joint is just a little bit more centered and a little bit more at ease for the rest of the work that we have planned. We are now going to come on to the mats. All right, now that we've woken the shoulders up, we're going to do some arm scissors to find a little bit of mobility there now. So this is a very gentle movement. I'm not whipping myself through it. Just allowing for the arm to come up and down and up and down. So I'm really thinking of my shoulder blade swinging out and up, out and up. You can almost think like a butterfly wing kind of going out and up, or a bird's wing. Nice and easy. Let's just do a couple more like this. And work within a range that feels good for you. I also don't want you to like whip the arm back, which might end up pushing your rib cage forward. So the arm comes, peripheral vision area. One more time. And down. We're going to mobilize the spine a little bit here by doing some side bends. So I'm going to take my hand and place it on my sternum. Imagine that this is a nice dial. I'm going to start to dial my ear toward the shoulder and dialing the rib cage into this nice side bend. And then dialing myself back up, melting the ribs back down toward the hip. We're going to do that again. As I dial, the ear begins to fall toward the shoulder, opening up the rib cage very gently. I'm not pushing my hip out. I'm not forcing the side bend movement. And up. Let's do two more like that. Ear to shoulder, dialing myself into that nice side bend, trying not to collapse too much into my opposite side. And one more time. Do the other side. So just switching the hands out I'm gonna let the ear fall to the shoulder. I'm gonna start to dial my hand. My elbow begins to rise up. It's easy for the shoulder to stay connected to the ear, so make sure that it just relaxes. And then dialing yourself back. Again, we're not forcing the movement. Two more. Opening up in that rib cage. Coming back up. One more time here. And up. A little rotation, so now both hands are going to come onto my sternum. Turning my head to the left, I'm going to start to rotate the collarbone around the top of the rib cage, and then the ribs are going to begin to follow that movement. And then I return back. And going to the opposite side. So the head begins to rotate, the collarbone follows, and then the ribs follow that movement. And back. You want to have the sensation of spiraling up as you do this. So that way you stay connected to the side you're rotating toward, but also rotation can be pretty hard on the discs of the spine. So we want to image that space between the vertebrae. So that way we're thinking of creating space between each of the discs rather than feeling like we're grinding down into them. One more time on each side. And if sitting cross-legged isn't feeling good for you, you can always sit the legs out in front of you, whatever feels most comfortable. And back to center. So I am going to switch my legs, just so that I can sit nice and tall on my sit bones. And here's where we're going to use the towel. So just holding kind of in thirds on the towel, I'm going to let it be pretty nice and slack, holding the arms out in front of me. The shoulders are not up by the ears, but they're also not being yanked down my back. I am in that nice neutral tension-free position. And all I'm going to start to do is begin to gently pull my hands apart. So that's going to start to wake up the musculature underneath my armpits, around my shoulder blades, and then I'm going to let it relax. So I can only go so far with my towel, but it does start to wake up the lats, the serratus, the mid-back, and then letting that go. It's a gentle movement. I want to lead with my pinky fingers, letting it go. Let's do two more here. And letting it go. And one. And letting it go. I'm going to bring my arms down. It's a lot of work to just keep the arms up there. You can really start to feel that work through the delts. So we're just going to roll the shoulders. And now we're going to come onto a diagonal. So I don't want you to come directly into this position. It might end up being too stressful for the shoulder joint. We want to gently strengthen the musculature around the shoulders. So I'm just coming on a diagonal, and again, leading from my pinky fingers, I'm going to gently pull those 2 points away from each other, and then let that release. And again, so it's the exact same exercise. The tummy is pulling in for support. Exhaling as I pull apart. Inhaling as I release. Exhaling. Inhaling. Let's go to the other side. So I find my diagonal, inhale, exhale, pull apart, inhale, exhale, pull apart, inhale, exhale, two more, exhale, one more time here. Let it release, bring the arms down, take a moment, shrug the shoulders, do circles. What's nice about this work is that you can do it sitting on a chair, and you can do it while you watch TV, listen to a podcast. You know, it's one of these exercises that doesn't take long to do, but the gains can be quite great if you start to incorporate it in during the day. So we're going to do a little circumduction, a little bit of circle work here, circular work. So we're going to find that nice horizontal position. I'm just going to begin to gently press out so that the towel is taut. And then I'm going to rotate onto the diagonal and then onto the diagonal. So I'm maintaining the tautness of the towel. That's a little tongue twister there. The tautness of the towel, the tautness of the towel. Pretty good. And that's the actor in me coming out. And I'm just gently rotating back and forth, and I can really start to feel the work around the shoulder blades. My goal is to keep it out of the neck. So you may have to lower the arms down a little bit if it feels like it's getting a little too grippy up there. Or take a break. One last time here. And down. Excellent. The towel is going to go away. We no longer need it for today's class. And we're going to come onto our backs. We're going to give the arms a little bit of a break and do a little bit of work around the lower half of the body. If you need a pillow or a little mini yoga block or something to lift your head up, if you feel that you're kind of living like this, please go and get one. We want to make sure that your neck is properly aligned here. I'm having ponytail issues. Okay, we're just going to go like that. From here, we're just going to go into a nice double knee drop and exhale in. Inhale, open. Exhale, pelvic floor, inner thighs. It's all pulling in together. So this feels pretty nice, especially after the sitting portion, because sometimes sitting for too long, it really gets kind of gunky in the hip joints and the low back, regardless of whether you're sitting in a chair, on the floor. So allowing for the thigh bone to move within the hip joint like this feels pretty nice after that work. And having the floor support my spine after having to keep it upright against gravity, it feels pretty nice too. We'll do a couple more here. Last one. And then I'm going to go to my single leg knee drops. So maintaining the support on the side of the body furthest away from the camera, I'm going to let that leg begin to open, the leg closest to the camera, and then bring it back in. Alternating the sides. Inhaling, trying to keep this leg really stable. And trying to keep my pelvis really stable so I don't start to rock over to the sides. We're going to do one more time on each side. And last one. Arms down if they aren't already. I like to sometimes put my hands around my hips and my ribs just to kind of feel what's going on there. So the hands are just going to rest by your side. We're now going to lift the heels up and then bring them back down. Heels up and back down. What I want you to notice on yourself here is, are you rolling to the baby toes when you do this? That's going to be a decrease of support through the inner thigh and through the inside of the leg. I really want you to aim for trying to hit that big toe knuckle and then across all of the toes. So that way that poor little baby toe isn't taking the brunt of the work, and we're really spreading ourselves out much more nicely in terms of weight distribution. It will make us more supportive in the end. We're going to do two more like this, lifting the heels up, and then we're going to switch it. So now we want to pivot on the heels, lifting the toes towards the shins, and then tapping the toes down. So one of the first kind of areas that we lose mobility in the body as we get older is the ability to dorsiflex. That's the ability to flex the foot. It's why we often see in an older generation, they shuffle their feet when they walk, and it's because they've lost the ability to flex the foot. So that's what we're practicing right now. We're working our dorsiflexion muscles. So the muscles through the inside of the foot here and then going into the shin to help strengthen that movement so we don't lose it. I clearly need to do more tongue twisters. 2 more here. And 1, aiming that big toe toward the shin and down. So we're going to continue to play with that idea of flexion and dorsiflexion, plantar flexion and dorsiflexion, by bringing the leg up into tabletop. I'm going to take a moment to feel the thigh bone sinking down into the hip joint, and then I'm going to flex my foot, and I'm going to reach out through that heel to the end of my mat. Then pointing the foot, reaching my toes to the end of the mat, reaching through my heel and reaching through my toes. Reaching through my heel and reaching through my toes. So you are going to feel this work in the shin. If it feels like it's getting really, really grippy, take a break. It's easy to start to get that tissue pretty tight. But just try to work through it if you can. We really do want to wake all that tissue up. We're going to do 2 more like this. And then we're going to go into a heel tap. So now, flexing the heel, reaching out through that heel, I'm going to hinge at my hip joint, engaging my glute, and I'm going to tap my heel down to the floor and then lift the leg back up. So we usually do this as a toe tap with the toe pointed. What's fun about this is that as I engage my core to support my leg and go down, I'm actually having to go down a little further in my range than when the toe is pointed. So it's a nice little challenge just by changing the foot position as to the stability that I have to find in my body and the work that I have to do. If this feels like it's too much, you have a couple of options. You can go halfway down, so that way you're not going all the way down the floor. It's not going to stress your abs and your back as much. Or you can go to the traditional toe tap if that feels more comfortable for you. But I would really encourage you, we're going to do 1 more here. I'm going to really encourage you to try the heel tap. And we do a bonus one to come down. Whew, and it just wakes up the leg in a bit of a different way. So we got to do the other side. Bringing that leg up into tabletop, feeling the thigh bone just sinking down into the hip joint. And then I'm just going to play with that dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, flexing and pointing my foot. And I want to think of the big toe leading the way, reaching for the shin, pointing the foot. Just nice and easy here. Two more. All right, now the fun part. We're going to flex the foot, engaging the core, finding the glute. We're going to tap that heel down to the floor and lift it back up. Tap it down, 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 and up. And it's so funny. Inhaling up, exhaling down. It's so funny how it just starts to make the leg shake in just a little bit of a different way than pointing the foot does. And even for me, after years of teaching the pointed foot version, I'm still getting shaky, shaky shakes on the flexed foot version. So Pilates, just by changing one thing, you're going to challenge the body a little bit differently. It's pretty cool. 2. One more time here. And bonus one to come down and let that release. So we're not done with this idea of pointing and flexing the foot. We're going to bring that first leg back up into tabletop. Now you can do all of this again with the leg in tabletop, or you can join me for this next layer where we're going to extend the leg out, flex the foot. We're going to point the foot and bring it back in. Reach out. Now normally we do it the opposite way, But again, I want you to feel how by flexing the foot, it engages the leg muscles in just a bit of a different way. It wakes up the tissue of the muscle just a little bit differently. We're going to do 2 more like this. One more time, we're going to flex the foot. Keep it out there if you can. Point and flex 3 times. 1 and flex. 2 and flex. Keep those abdominals active. 3, flex the foot, point it, bring it back in, and lower it down. We're going to do that with the other leg. So coming up into tabletop, we're going to flex the foot, reach out through that heel, engage that glute. The whole posterior chain is waking up. Point the foot, bring it back in. Flex the foot, reach out like you're reaching for the wall. And in. Let's do 3 more. Exhale. So the leg can go higher up to the ceiling if your back is feeling compromised. On this last one, we're going to stay out there. Flex through the foot, reach it, reach it, reach it, reach it. Pull those abs in. Point for 1, flex the foot. Point for 2, flex the foot. Point for 3, flex the foot. Point the foot one more time, pull it in, and lower it down. Nicely done. We're not done yet. We're going to bring the heels a little closer to the bum. We're just going to do some hip lifts from here. So the hands are going to stay down by your side. We're staying nice and easy through the upper body. Giving the glutes a squeeze, we're going to press up into just a little hip lift here. And I'm going to lift one heel up only, aiming for my big toe knuckle. So I'm not rolling out to my baby toe, and then down. Other side, aim for that big toe knuckle. Try not to lose the glute support on the opposite side. Core is very active. We're going to do 1 more time on each side because this is some good work. And down, and then hinge the hip. Find the hip hinge. Keep the abs active, the hips and the rib cage all coming down in one big piece. We're going to go back up. So finding the glutes, using the glutes to pick the bum up toward the ceiling. We're just going to do a little heel lift again, heel lift again, heel lift, heel lift, and then hinge and come down. 1 more time, but we're building on it. So if that heel lift was enough to be a challenge for you, then stay there. But if you're looking for more, this is where you can go. We're going to come up and do a little march. So it's not a big exercise. I'm going to engage through my far glute from the camera and just lift my foot a little bit off the floor. Then I'm going to engage through that glute and just lift my leg a little bit off the floor. So I'm not going into this huge march. I'm just trying to maintain stability through my pelvis. Feel that little bit of shift of weight. Just challenging the glutes, the legs, and the abs just a little bit. 1 more time on the other leg. And then hinge and come all the way down. All right, we are going to come onto our side now and continue to do some arm work. So you can take your pillow and place it under your head if you'd like. I'm just going to rest on my arm. And my legs are just resting nice and easily. I'm gently pulling my tummy muscles in, and I want to make sure that I have a nice hip crease. So I'm kind of reaching my bum back behind me. I don't want to be tucking my bum in toward my heels, but instead reaching my bum back toward my lovely little table here. Pulling those abs in. And the first thing I'm going to do is bring my arm up to the ceiling, and it's in my peripheral vision, so I don't have it way back here. I have it in my nice peripheral vision. And I'm just going to start to lower the arm down, and I'm going to let my shoulder blade go with it. So I'm allowing my rib cage to rotate slightly toward the floor. And then I'm going to let my fingers float their way back up, let the shoulder blade glide down to the spine, and my rib cage kind of naturally follows the movement, but I don't go past my peripheral vision. And down. So I'm going to let my arm get heavy. I'm going to allow the shoulder blade to follow. I'm going to allow for a little bit of movement through that rib cage. And then the fingers are floating, the shoulder blade is melting, and the ribs are returning. Notice that my pelvis isn't moving during this, or moving very, very little during this. I really want to try to keep that rotation to the rib cage. And up. And a couple more, just allowing for the shoulder blade to find a little bit of ease and a reach. And then back up, melting the shoulder blade down. One more time like this, allowing for a little bit of heaviness in the arm and coming back, holding that there. I'm going to do a little rotator cuff. Now, this little bit of rotation might not feel great in this position. It may have felt better when we were doing it standing. If it doesn't feel great doing the full arm like this, you can bend the elbow into your waist and you can do the more traditional external rotation exercise that we typically see coming out of a physiotherapist's office. We do it a lot in Pilates as well. It will work your rotator cuff, but if you're looking for a little bit more access to all of the tissue safely, I don't want you to feel like you're going to dislocate or compromise the shoulder joint in any way. We're just going to move it back and forth just nice and easily. Letting that humeral head just rotate in the joint. I'm not yanking my arm into either direction. I'm just kind of very easily moving it. Kind of like if you were just gently kind of trying to set a golf ball on a golf tee. That's kind of what we're doing right now. And then I'm going to stop, bring the arm up overhead, again, in my peripheral vision, so it's ahead of my face. And then I'm just going to sweep the arm to the hip. And then I'm going to sweep it back up in my peripheral vision. So it's a single arm scissor. We did this when we were sitting, but it feels nice and a little different to do it on your side. Do just a couple more here again, just working in a range that doesn't feel like you're compromising the shoulder joint itself. Last one, and then I'm just going to rest my hand down. All right, we're going to give the upper body a little bit of a break, and we're going to look at the legs. I'm bringing my knees directly out from my hip joint, and then my shins are in line with the edge of my mat. Engaging my glutes, tummy is active. I'm going to lift that leg up and bring it down. I want my knee to be either in line with my ankle or a little bit higher than my ankle. I don't want to get into this position. That is a different exercise. And down, and down. Let's do 5, engaging the glute for 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to hold it there. Now, engaging my glute, I'm going to bring my leg back. I can only go so far because I hit my table. And then I'm going to bring my knee in toward my chest, engaging my glute, coming back with the leg as far as I can, and in. So I don't want you to compromise your back. I want you to keep a nice long torso. And again, we're just working from the hip joint, strengthening the glutes and the core. Let's do 2 more here. Bringing the leg in, lowering it down with control, and pushing yourself up, taking your pillow, and we're going to the other side. All right, so finding a comfortable position for the body where you're still nice and supported and stabilized. We're going to bring the arm up. It's in my peripheral vision. And then again, I'm just allowing the arm to get heavy, the shoulder blade to reach, and a little bit of rotation in my rib cage, and then gliding it all back up. And again. And up. Letting that shoulder blade slide around the rib cage as the arm comes down, and then letting it just melt right back down toward that spine. So it's not going to my ears, it's not going
down my back toward my bum, but it's just sliding and gliding back to the spine. And there's that little bit of rotation through my rib cage that feels so nice. Let's do 2 more. 1. Now, here's that rotator cuff. So I'm in my peripheral vision, and I'm imagining that I'm trying to put that golf ball on the golf tee. But if this doesn't feel good, you can go into that more traditional rotator cuff work. You're going to be a little bit more limited in terms of range of movement, and that's okay. But if that feels better for you than doing this one, then I would encourage you to go that direction instead. You can imagine that you're kind of screwing a light bulb in here too. That's another good image. 2, 1. We're going to bring the arm up overhead, sweep it down toward the hip, and sweep it back up. Trying to find some good freedom through the shoulder blade. Easy breaths. Two more. One more time. Bringing the arm down and resting it. So now my knees are coming directly out from my hip joint. My shins are in line with the edge of my mat. The tummy is pulled in and my bum is reaching out a little bit behind me, just so that I can find that little bit of crease in my lumbar and that freedom through my sits bones and tailbones. Engaging the glute, I'm gonna lift the leg up and then lower it down. And lift it up and lower it down. Finding that glute lift. Let's do 2 more. And 1, coming down, bringing the leg in line with the hip joint. I'm going to engage my glute and bring the leg back, opening the front of the hip, and then bringing the leg back in. And again. And in. Let's do this for 4. Allowing for the hip hinge to happen as the knee comes in towards the chest. And 2. 1. Coming back in line with the hip joint and then slowly lowering the leg down to the floor. Coming onto our bellies now for a little bit of extension work. So the first thing I'm going to do is you can place the pillow underneath your forehead if you would like. Otherwise, you can let your nose just hover over the floor. Pulling the tummy in, the first thing I'm going to do is think of my elevator doors, my shoulder blades. I'm going to do a little scapula glide and just gently pull them together and then let them release. Pull them together, pulling up through the abdominals, finding a little bit of glute support, and then down. Sliding them together, holding that there, reaching out through the top of the head, lengthening out like an airplane, taking off. I'm not coming up very high, but I can feel that work in my upper back, and then coming back down. If you feel like you're being compromised in the low back, you may want to reassess where you're supporting yourself from. Really pull the tummy away from the floor, really find some good glute support. Shoulder blades are going to slide together, lengthening out through the top of the head. You don't have to come very high to feel this work, and then melt yourself back down. You want to have the sense of getting longer through the spine and creating space between the front of the ribs as you lift. That way you're not sinking into the ribs as you come up. Lengthening, 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 and down. 2 more, and down. One more time. And down. Hands are going to come underneath the forehead. We're just going to do a little bit of leg work here. So going back to that idea of flexing and pointing the foot, I'm going to engage my glute, and I'm going to reach out through my left leg, or my leg closest to the camera, and I'm going to lift the leg. From here, I'm going to flex my foot and point my foot. Flex and point. So I can feel that the glute is turning on to help keep the leg up. I want to pull the abs in. If you feel like you're going into your back, you might be missing one of those Lego pieces. So find the glute, find the core. We're going to keep the foot flexed here and go into 5 circles in each direction, lifting that glute and that leg just a little bit more. 2, 1, and then reversing the direction of that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Point the foot, lower it down. Other side, engaging through the glute, reaching out through the pointed foot as you lift the leg up. Then flex the foot and point. Pull those abdominals in. Let's do this for 3 and 2, 1. Keep the foot flexed. 5 circles in each direction. 1. They don't have to be big. 2. Pull the abs in. 3, 4, 5. Reversing for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Point the foot and lower it down. Just push yourself back to a child's pose. Breathing. We're just going to finish on our hands and knees for a little bit of stability work for the shoulders. So we started the class with some stability work against the wall, and now we'll finish it on the floor. So finding a nice 4-point kneel, I'm going to actively push that floor away, keeping the abdominals active. Staying really connected underneath the armpit, I'm going to reach one arm forward, and I'm just going to tap it 6 times. So my goal here is actually for the supporting arm, not so much the arm that's working. I want to have a slight bend in the elbow. I'm rotating the elbow back toward my feet. 2 and 1. Now hold that. Try not to sink into the shoulder. Opening the arm out to the side. And I'm going to do 5 little circles. 2 and 1. And then reversing for 3, 2, and 1. And then bringing the arm down. I'm going to turn around to the other side. So again, as I push the floor away, rotate the elbows to the back of the mat and keep just a little bit of a bend in the elbow. It's really easy to lock out and hyperextend, but you do want to keep a touch of softness in that elbow. That's really hard for me to do, so I don't want you to forget that cue, because I forget that. So I'm going to reach out my hand closest to the camera, and I'm just going to lift 6 to 8 times. Just nice and easily here. 3, 2, 1. I'm going to open the arm out to the side and just challenging my abdominal support here a little bit. 5 circles, 2 and 1. Really trying not to sink into my shoulder, pushing that floor actively away. 2 and 1, and then coming down and back. All right, there you have it. A nice restorative class that helps to engage all of the musculature around the shoulder joint. I hope that you liked today's class. I hope that you're feeling a little bit more open and a little bit more supportive through the shoulder joint. The shoulder joint is, like I said before, it walks a fine line between stability and mobility. We need both of those. So this class had all of that in it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you again next time.